Hello, and welcome to the Commonwealth, your podcast about community development in Detroit and other urban communities. This is your host, Dana Thompson, law professor and attorney. This podcast explores the various projects, laws, policies, ideas, and activities used to address the pressing issues facing Detroit and other urban communities. The Commonwealth will engage in thought-provoking and lively discussions with a range of thought leaders, including those from the grassroots community, government, academy, philanthropic sector, and beyond. We will examine the projects, laws, policies, and activities used to develop urban communities and whether these tools are able to create systemic change and economic justice in these communities. Welcome. This is The Commonwealth, a podcast about community development and economic justice in Detroit and other urban communities. In this inaugural broadcast, I'm pleased to be joined by University of Michigan Regent and attorney Mark Bernstein. Given Mark's extensive and distinguished leadership in the law and in the civic and public service arenas, I can think of no better person to kick off the podcast discussions about community development in Detroit, particularly as it relates to higher education. Mark is a triple Wolverine, earning a BA, JD, and MBA from the University of Michigan. He's the president and managing partner of the Sam Bernstein Law Firm, PLLC. In 2018, he served as the director of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Transition Office. He's the longest-serving member of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, appointed by Governor Jennifer Granholm in 2004 and serving until 2012. In 2012, Michigan voters elected Mark to serve on the University of Michigan Board of Regents, and he was reelected in 2020. His current term expires January 1st, 2029. Mark is a distinguished attorney, public official, and civic leader in Michigan, serving and leading on numerous nonprofit boards. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Commonwealth Podcast, Mark.
So good to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
It's great seeing
really
you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is exciting.
It's really exciting.
I don't know if any of that, got to live up to that billing. I don't know if that's
We know you will. Absolutely. I mean, I talked about all of these great accomplishments you have, and anybody who's in the area sees you often on billboards. We love it, and commercials. But I'd like to know the Mark Bernstein story. Can you tell us, give us a more complete picture?
Sure. Let me do my best to do that. Yeah. I grew up in Southeast Michigan, and product of public education from, never set foot in a private school for any part of my education, from kindergarten to K through 12, and then University of Michigan for undergrad, and then where I majored in political science, and then straight into law school, and then added an MBA while I was in the law school, so a JD MBA program. That was before the kind of joint, as a faculty member, right. The joint programs were much more, you kind of had to do it yourself. There was like a flyer in the registrar's office or something about it. There were all these color-coded flyers if you want to do JD MBA, JD MD, JD Public Health, JD Social Work, JD this, JD that.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like a salmon-colored flyer. I picked it up, and it was kind of do it yourself.
Okay.
It was I kind of spent a lot of time. So the first year I did law, then I went to the business school. Before it was the Ross School, and then the last year and a half or 2 years, I started in the summer. I don't know if you ever taught summer starters.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I was a summer starter, and then took the bar in Michigan. Miraculously, I passed it, and then I went straight to, I was going to start working with join my family's law firm.
Okay.
And but while I was a student at while I was a law student at Michigan, I kind of, it wasn't really an internship, but I had an opportunity to work this was during the Clinton administration, with the White House. The White House advance team had come to help set up a trip for President Clinton, and so I got to meet some of the people involved in that. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up getting an opportunity to work at the White House in Washington. So instead, I took a detour. Instead of going to work at with my family, I ended up going off to Washington. and worked there for not all of, but most of the second Clinton administration.
Okay.
And then after that, went to New York, worked on Wall Street for 3 years or so. Well, my wife Rachel went to law school there, and then we returned to Ann Arbor, where at that point, that's when I did join the law firm. Started working on the Civil Rights Commission, was appointed by Governor Granholm, and absolutely, fell in love with this. Fell back in love, I guess, with this place, right? And viewed the opportunity to be involved in the law, to be involved in the civic and political arenas, to do good things, and to make an impact. This was a unique place for me to be able to do that. And so the Civil Rights Commission was really the first place that I really engaged pretty intensely in work that was really meaningful to me, and I hope for the community. And Linda Parker was the director of the department when I was the chair of the department. She's now on the federal bench.
That's
here
right.
in the Eastern District in Michigan, and she's an amazing person. But we kind of caused good trouble, right, as people say, right, and including. The thing that I'm most proud of, it'd be interesting to ask, she'd be a great guest, by the way.
Oh, great. But
including this investigation that we did into the living conditions of migrant worker families. Michigan is, well, at the time, I think we might still be, the 4th largest migrant population in the United States when it comes to children, because of the seasonality of the type of crops that are grown in Michigan and the types of crops that require migrant workers. And the living conditions that these workers were experiencing were atrocious. And so the Civil Rights Commission and the department launched an investigation into the living conditions of migrant workers. And we visited camps, and it was really the first time that that this issue had been really intensely explored and studied. And we came out with a 100-page long, hundreds of pages. There was lots of exhibits, but I don't know, almost 1,000 pages of material on this on what was happening in these camps, and among many other things that we did together on that commission. And so when that period of time ended, I was really inspired by my brother Richard, who ran our public service division at the law firm. He served on the Wayne State University Board of Governors, actually.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And then when an opportunity arose to run for University of Michigan Board of Regents, I jumped at it, and that's now almost 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. So,
oh my gosh.
And that's been another opportunity to make, I think, really, I hope, meaningful impact on the community and do good things. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
thank
So
you.
that's a more resume kind of review, but that's, the type of things that I've been involved in.
So how have your professional and public service work, how has that work been inspired by your family?
That's a really good question. So my grandmother, Estelle Nelson, was one of the first female attorneys in Michigan. And to put into context her accomplishment, she became a lawyer. She passed the bar the same year that Sandra Day O'Connor, who just passed away, was 3 years old. So she was really at a remarkable leader in that space, groundbreaker in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so, and then there was also Mandel Bernstein, who was my grandfather on my dad's side, who was a labor lawyer, was engaged in the political arena, had his own, with his brother, a Yiddish radio show that was very popular in the Detroit area.
Okay.
And so there was this kind of, and it's funny because my dad and my mom, they were so focused on building their practice, my dad's law practice, our family's law practice, that they were engaged in the political arena, but not in a way that either I had become or that my brother is. But there clearly was this expectation that we be engaged in the affairs of our community, and that we try to make a difference in a positive way, and that we, with the privilege that we have and the ability to make an impact that we have, you should use it, and use it in a good positive way. Do your very best to do it. And that's really been kind of embedded in our family's kind of mission in a lot of ways. And so I think all of that kind of rubbed off,
Absolutely.
and we keep at it all the time. It's just how can we do important, impactful, thoughtful work to make other people's lives, and in doing so, our own, better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cultivating that that sense of public interest and giving back, and that's so important.
Yeah.
Did they also cultivate in you a connection with Detroit and the importance of Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, Detroit was always central. Like, both my parents grew up in Detroit. Their parents grew up in Detroit.
Okay.
And so it was absolutely part of our kind of routine, our awareness, right? We didn't live in Detroit.
Okay.
But we were deeply connected to it in meaningful ways. And of course, the courts that my dad spent his time in were here. Wayne County Circuit Court was, where, he spent an enormous amount of his time.
Right.
And so, just tagging along and being in that arena was something that really rubbed off. We were not, it was interesting growing up in suburban Detroit. There were people who had nothing to do with Detroit. Detroit was like over there.
Right.
And we spent time in the city. And that was became part of our kind of, I wouldn't say it's part of our identity exactly. I don't want to go too far. But it was clearly something that was familiar to us. We were aware of it, and we were engaged in the affairs of the city in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's pretty unique, especially, I remember in the 70s and 80s, people from the suburbs didn't usually want to go into Detroit too often. So that's a unique and enriching perspective. So when thinking about, you talked a bit about being a regent, and can you just talk about your view on the role of higher education institutions in addressing inequities in Detroit and other urban communities?
That's really, it's an urgent and important question, right? It's interesting. I just came from the groundbreaking for the University of Michigan Center for Innovation, UMCI project, where Santa Ono, our president, said something I'd never heard anybody say, but it's brilliant, and it's really thoughtful, and I'm going to steal it, or at least use it right now. And he said, he views his role as the president of the University of Michigan and also the University for Michigan.
Yes.
And I thought that was really a great way to frame the mission of a great public university. I mean, just like Wayne State, of course. And so it is the role. We are, as you know, Barry, from your work at Wayne State and your work at Michigan. Like we are unique in this state where we have 15 extraordinary public universities, oftentimes overlooked. People don't fully appreciate how remarkable our public education system is, K through 12, and of course, our higher education system.
Right.
And there are 3 that have publicly elected boards: Wayne State, Michigan State, and University of Michigan. And I think that is an essential part of the identity of the university, each of these great universities. And having a publicly elected board, I think, has a number of benefits. The most important one, in my view, is that it just is a constant reminder to the leadership of the universities, to the faculty, to the staff, to the administration, and sometimes to the students, that this is a public university with a public mission. And that mission, of course, includes the entire state, but it includes the places in our state that have the most to teach us and have, in many respects, the most opportunity to benefit from the remarkable educational power of a university and the power of education, and also the change in the trajectory of a person's life that a great college university education can afford. These are all these universities are, and I'll just talk about Michigan because I'm the most familiar with it. They are literally, in my view, the most important ladders towards prosperity that we have in our society. And we have to channel that put those ladders in places where they make the most impact. And clearly doing so in the city of Detroit is essential. We would be betraying our mission if we didn't.
Yep.
And that's a constant. It is an absolute. This is just not. I mean, literally just came from a groundbreaking of a $250 million program. We're in the Detroit Center here. Rackham, the Rackham building, is part of the University of Michigan's kind of portfolio of activity. We have over 1,000 programs in the city of Detroit going on, whether they be educational, programmatic, research. It's and this only deepens the connection that we have to the city.
Absolutely. So what are your expectations of the Center for Innovation?
That's, so the Center for Innovation is, in some ways, is a work in progress. And it should, in my view, it should remain so. I think that, so the fundamental mission of the Center for Innovation is to create a hub of activity in the city of Detroit, where we are creating degrees and providing educational opportunities that are in some ways tailored to, and in some ways by, employers who are looking for particular skill sets. And the UMCI will provide a bridge into those opportunities for Detroiters and for people, and bring people into Detroit to live in Detroit, participate in the programs and educational opportunities that the UMCI provides, and then hopefully stay in the city of Detroit and participate in the life of the city. The other thing that has been largely overlooked, but I think really important, is that it goes in two directions, right? So all we hope that the UMCI is innovative, but we also think, and you know this as a faculty member, that the UMCI can serve as a place where we can experiment and innovate and bring those innovations back to Ann Arbor, where we desperately need new creative approaches to education, and we're so risk averse on a big established campus like the University of Michigan, that sometimes you have to, my hope in fact is that we can go off campus, do some interesting creative stuff off campus, and then bring it back to Ann Arbor and enrich the activities that we do on our campus, and also Dearborn and also Flint too.
Yes, absolutely. So. Yeah, and those are some of the richest lessons that I see my students learn, being in the community, working with community-based organizations and small businesses, and really deepening their legal skills and other skills as a result of their exposure. So it sounds like
your students must, right? It's one thing to go down a checklist to start an LLC or something. It's another thing when you're across from a client who doesn't have the checklist.
Right.
They may not have the document. They may not. It just forces students to really confront the reality of the world that they are about to go into.
Absolutely.
And this is as real as it gets here.
Absolutely, yeah, because even if they have the checklist, they don't necessarily understand why certain things are important or not, or don't care. They just want to focus on their business. And so students need to understand, I have to have interpersonal skills to actually help them understand why this is important.
Exactly.
So.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So when thinking about you talked a little bit about the risks of the Innovation Center, and there is some risk averseness with any institution. What are some of those risks?
That's a good. So the risks, I think, are. I don't think it's really financial. I mean, the University of Michigan is a stable, wealthy, prosperous institution financially. The risks are that it doesn't live up to its expectations. The risks are that it fails to really engage the city of Detroit and the broadly defined community of stakeholders in the city of Detroit. And I know that the board has been very focused on making sure that whatever happens at the UMCI is not of course we want students from Ann Arbor to engage in what's happening at UMCI, or students from U of M Dearborn, but it was so good at this event that just came from to see the principal of Cass Tech speaking at the opening event.
Wonderful.
She brought 11 of her top students to the event.
Okay.
It's across the street, literally across the street from Cass Tech, and so to see. If we can get those students, first of all, interested in the University of Michigan, because we benefit enormously by their presence on our campus, that's a win.
Right.
And if we can give those students a reason to stay in Detroit, I don't want them going to Chicago or New York or Miami or LA. I want them to stay in Detroit and make a future here and build a better future for themselves and our community. If we don't do that, that would mean that we're not optimizing the opportunity here.
Right.
And that's a risk, because otherwise you might as well just put this thing in Brighton or something.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
it's not there for a reason. So it's making sure that we're able to accomplish what I think are quite aggressive aspirations, and not fall short of it. I mean, it's also this is not a simple project. It's kind of uncharted.
Yeah.
As you know, as an academic, it doesn't quite perfectly belong inside an academic world. Like,
Right.
no one quite knows what to do with it. It's not a department exactly. It's not its own campus or school. And so a risk in a university arena is it could be a bit of a homeless, kind of wandering center that has no champion for it.
Right.
And that's a kind of a dangerous, vulnerable, fragile place to be on a university campus.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So we'll have to keep an eye out to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. So do you think there are particular things that the regents will do to make sure that it's meeting those benchmarks?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the first is making sure that we have the right leadership there. The second is to make sure that it continues to get the kind of visibility that it needs in Ann Arbor to ensure that no one takes their eye off the ball. The third is to, as you mentioned, have, I think, real measurable, precise goals so that we're able to see it if we're on track.
Right.
And if we're not on track, make adjustments.
Right.
And then I think the most important kind of metric will be enrollment, will be do students want to go there? Do
Right.
faculty want to teach there? And if that's not happening, then that's just obviously, that's an obvious sign that we got to change some things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting when you hear about higher education these days. There are a lot of concerns about the value of higher education, and people question whether they should go into a university or a college or go straight to work. And it seems like this project is an innovative way to show the value of higher education, not just for the students, but for the community.
I think that's true. I think that in some ways, universities or the higher education community has lost the narrative in terms of making the case for the value of higher education, and in particular, the value of a liberal arts education.
Yep.
And so great universities, well, they in some ways teach professions or vocations, are not vocational schools. They are teaching ideally a well-rounded liberal arts education, like small L, small A, liberal arts education. And in doing so, you're teaching students and future leaders, hopefully, how to solve problems, how to do it in a way that's rooted in the lessons and context of history. And that's an essential part of a civilization that's
Yes.
thriving, of a society that's advancing. And, I appreciate if I'm a student or sitting at a kitchen table with my parents trying to figure out if it makes sense to pay $25,000 a year if you're in Michigan, or $80,000 if you want to go to, Harvard or Penn or Princeton or something, maybe more than that.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? And all the data actually says that, of course, it is.
Right.
And in every way,
that.
not just in terms of your earnings, but in terms of your lifespan. I mean, in every way, the more educated you are, the better off you will be in your life, in every possible way. Now, it doesn't mean you will, it's a necessary, it's indispensable.
Right.
You can have an amazing, fulfilling, impactful, long and beautiful life without going to college, obviously. But it is clear that we have, there is a certain, I think, priority now on kind of immediacy, right? Like it is almost like a obvious example of delayed gratification.
Right.
I'm going to pay a ton of money. I'm going to spend 4 years or longer studying, basically, hoping that I get a better job with higher pay afterward. I get the impatience that a lot of families and students feel.
Right.
And I think we maybe need to we definitely need to do a better job proving the worth and the value of it. We also have to do a better job at the University of Michigan and other places, keep making sure that a college education is affordable and accessible.
Yes.
And that is a
Absolutely.
huge problem. And we struggle with that at the University of Michigan mightily. We introduced the Go Blue Guarantee a few years ago, which we're very, very proud of.
Yes.
That has gone a very long way to making the University of Michigan more accessible and affordable for families across the state, and in particular in the city of Detroit.
Oh, really? Okay.
And in fact, there was just some data recently that students that are part of the Go Blue Guarantee program, for lack of a better word, have on average like a significantly higher grade point average than students who are not. And in some ways, it's like these are students who just know what the stakes are.
Right.
They're not there to go to party or go to a football game. They're there to like get high grades and just get out and start succeeding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They don't have room for like error, and so it's proving itself out to be a really, really transformative program.
That's fantastic.
And I know other schools have similar programs like it. But
Yeah. So when thinking about Detroiters with this Go Blue Guarantee, you said that there have been positive results in Detroit.
Oh,
for
significant. Yeah. So
Detroiters.
the Go Blue Guarantee, when we introduced it, said the promise essentially is that if you come from a family with a household income of $65,000 or less, then you can go to the University of Michigan for free. And so the average, the meaning behind the $65,000 number is that at the time the Go Blue Guarantee was announced, the median household income in the state of Michigan was about $64,000. So basically, we were targeting an approach that enabled at least half of the households in the state of Michigan to send their kids to the University of Michigan for free. And I, sadly but true, the median household income in the city of Detroit is significantly less than
Yes, it is.
$65,000. So, and I don't quite know what it is, but my guess is that probably 75% of the students graduating from the city of Detroit are able to go to the University of Michigan for free, which is a remarkable thing. And it has been, we struggle with diversity, equity, and inclusion on our as you know, on our campus.
Absolutely.
All of our campuses. But the ability to make college affordable is an essential part of that effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what do you hope U of M's legacy will be on the city of Detroit?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have had, it's important to recognize that the university has had the University of Michigan started in the city of Detroit in 1817.
Oh.
It left in 1837 or 1836.
It was 1837.
Yeah, and then, but we've had this very long unbroken relationship with the city of Detroit.
Right.
And so my hope is that the legacy of the UMCI program, but also this university, is that we are part of a educational, political, civic, cultural, arts ecosystem that enriches the lives of Detroiters and showcases these parts of life beyond the city of Detroit, because we have so many people on our campus in Ann Arbor in particular who come from all over the world.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
to be able to be a bridge into the city of Detroit for these for our students and faculty and staff who have never set foot in the city probably before they became aware of it through the university. So if we're able to play a role in that way, I think that'd be really, really important.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll encourage more of those people to stay in Michigan.
That's true. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I have.
Oh, wow. That's great. This is really fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for
and,
being here and
being
doing this.
my
It's exciting.
inaugural
I'm
guest.
your guinea pig. This
Yeah.
is, all right.
But
Really
it's
great.
worked out.
Yeah, this
It's
is so
worked
good.
out.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Commonwealth Podcast. Be sure to rate the podcast and subscribe. And you can find the podcast anywhere you find other podcasts. So we look forward to seeing you next time. This has been the Commonwealth Podcast. The Commonwealth is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center and the University of Michigan Law School's Community Enterprise Clinic. The Commonwealth is hosted and executive produced by me, Dana Thompson. It is executive produced by Theodis Ship III, with production support from Tiffany Chang and Akita Kotian.